The winter meetings are done, but the Rangers' time making moves sure isn't. The Rangers signed the first piece of their bullpen, Jacob Webb. We're going to talk about what he means for this pen, what else the Rangers have left to do, and why the Jake Burger trade absolutely does not mean Nathaniel Lowe is on his way out of Texas. Talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're going to talk about the Rangers signing Jacob Webb to a one-year deal, the overwhelming amount of Jakes on this Rangers roster, why it does not mean Nathaniel Lowe is on his way out, who could be on their way out as a result of the Jake Burger trade, and it looks like the Astros might just be becoming sellers. I'm talking about all that and more, but first, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, let's get into it. The Rangers signed the first member of their bullpen offseason free agent class in Jacob Webb, a right-handed relief pitcher formerly of the Braves, formerly of the Baltimore Orioles. He is 31 years old, heading into his age 31 season, just turned 31 in August of this past year, has spent time with the Atlanta Braves where he won a World Series back in 2021, missed 2022, played in 2023 with the Angels and Baltimore, and last year he was with Baltimore before he was non-tendered. He was set to make $1.5 million in arbitration, and the Orioles said, nope, that's too rich for my blood, apparently, for some reason. He was not even under the guys who I talked about of the non-tendered free agents that the Rangers could sign, but this is a valuable bullpen piece, and why the Orioles are deciding to still be very, very broke despite having a rich owner now, I think it's a whole other issue that I'm sure Locked On Orioles is talking a whole bunch about. But they gave away for free, for no reason, other than they didn't want to pay him $1.5 million, Jacob Webb. The Rangers signed him to a one-year, $1.25 million deal coming off of a really good season with Baltimore. A 3.02 ERA in 60 games, 56 2/3 innings, 58 strikeouts, more than a strikeout per inning. Actually, just one strikeout shy of one strikeout per inning in his 5-year big league career, 187 innings pitched, 186 strikeouts, a career 2.98 ERA in 5 big league seasons. Now, the reason the Rangers brought this guy in is because he has got an exceptional changeup. I mean, downright exceptional. I mean, in terms of off-speed value, it was in the top 10 percentile of off-speed pitches in baseball last year. I mean, that's how darn good he is. He's also got a pretty good fastball, not a whole lot of velocity there at 93.5 miles an hour average for that four-seamer, but he uses it well. He's also got a sweeper that he used 28% of the time last year. That's an interesting pitch. It's more of the horizontal moving kind of a slider, more of the designer pitches that kind of came into vogue the last couple of years, was just classified as a slider until the last couple of years, but it's a pitch that the Rangers don't throw, and there's a reason for it. Because team doctor Keith Meister, the czar of all elbows, the master of the Tommy John, has advised against it because it causes a lot of stress on the elbow, more so than most other types of pitches. So for the most part, the Rangers just don't really throw it. John Gray threw it for a little while a couple of seasons back and then lessened his usage with it, and then I don't think he really used it at all this past year, and his slider is one of his best pitches, so adding the sweeper as a variant off of it was effective, but not really worth the risk, according to the Rangers. So if he will keep using that is interesting. Maybe it'll transition to more of a slider, but he's really darn good against left-handed batters, something the Rangers relievers were not. They were not good against left-handed batters, and well, part of that is because they didn't have really that great of lefties in their pen, of guys who were harsh on lefties. Latz wasn't particularly harsh on lefties. Robertson and Yates were both good against lefties, but Leclerc surprisingly wasn't, even though he's got a really, really good changeup. Robertson being a cutter first guy, I mean, he's really good against lefties, getting that cutter in on the hands. But Kirby Yates, really good against lefties because when all your stuff is based on vertical movement as opposed to horizontal movement, it doesn't matter which side of hitter which side of the plate the hitter is standing on, he's going to have some issues with it. So if the Rangers bring back Yates, that could also be a way to help be good against lefties. This is now the fourth Jacob the Rangers have on their roster. Jacob deGrom, Jacob Latz, Jacob Webb, and also Jake Berger. 4 Jakes. Now the Jakes outnumber the Joshes, 3 Joshes, and also 2 Nates / Nathaniels. I mean, it's just a Jake on Jack, and also Jack Leiter. I mean, it's just all the J names going in here. But I really like the signing of Webb. Not if it's the only thing that they do, which I to fix their bullpen. I don't think that's going to be the case. The Rangers still have quite a bit to do with their bullpen. They have a little bit of money to spend, but speaking of their money, one guy who's not going to cost a whole lot is Jake Berger, a pre-arbitration guy who the Rangers brought in that trade from the Miami Marlins, a guy who hits dingers and hits dingers. He hits a lot of them. That is something that the Rangers offense most definitely lacked this past year, and it's something that Nathaniel Lowe should be providing a little bit more of, honestly. He's going to be the first one to tell you that. He will be literally the first one to tell you that. I mean, last year he only had 16 home runs, 17 the year before that, 18 in his first year. Heck, the only year that he's had more than 20 was that Silver Slugger year in 2023 where he hit 27 home runs. Even last year in 2023 when he wasn't hitting a whole bunch of home runs, he had 38 doubles. So still bringing a little bit of pop. And the ironic thing is it's ironic because Nathaniel Lowe, I mean, he has an exceptional walk rate. He can be a little bit too passive. That's why he's not adding all that much power, despite in terms of raw power of just the sheer oomph, sheer, impact that he can make on the baseball when he really gives it a go, when he gives it his A-tier swing, the guy who's putting on the biggest laser show in batting practice, it's Nathaniel Lowe. He has got as much raw pop as anybody, but part of the thing that works to his detriment is him being such a selective hitter, him working so many walks, him knowing that he doesn't have to swing at the bad pitches. It can cause him to sometimes not swing as much at the good pitches. But you need all kinds of types of hitters in the lineup. You do. To be a good offense, you need guys who are going to get on base. You need guys who can work counts, who can drive pitch counts up from starting pitchers. You also need guys who can go out there and attack the first pitch and do some damage. That's what Corey Seager does. Corey Seager can also work a count if he needs to, but he is more aggressive. Same with Marcus Semien. Semien does a lot of damage on first pitches. He does a lot of damage via the home run ball. But the rest of this offense didn't do as good a job of providing those home runs. The Rangers have now added in, I believe it is 46 home runs worth of offense, and they're 2 off-season additions to this lineup. But part of the reason that I don't think Nathaniel Lowe is on his way out is because he is going to make around $10.5, maybe $10.7 million in arbitration, and it seems like a decent chunk, but it would be just selling low on Nathaniel Lowe. It would be, we could use this money better elsewhere. And it would be actively making the Rangers' offense worse while just trying to be a little bit cheap. And the Rangers, I thought they might be cheap this offseason. I thought they might, not be as aggressive. I thought they might miss out on Nathan Eovaldi coming back because the price would get too high. But the Rangers went for 3 years, $75 million. And with Max Fried, the Rangers are the ones that really pushed the Yankees to make that offer all the way up to 8 years, $218 million. Texas offered Max Fried 7 years, $190 million, according to Joel Sherman of the New York Post. Now, that offer was a little bit backloaded, so the Rangers could figure out exactly how much they're going to get in that with that new regional sports network, which it seems like they're feeling pretty confident that they're going to get a decent chunk of change if they were willing to consider signing both of those starting pitchers. There's a report by Evan Grant that the Rangers were working out scenarios where they could sign Nathan Eovaldi and Max Fried. Now, I don't think the Rangers could have signed Max Fried to 7 years for $190 and signed Nathan Eovaldi to 3 years, $75 million, and kept Nathaniel Lowe. I think in that scenario, they would probably have to send out Nathaniel Lowe to kind of reallocate those dollars elsewhere, because they still need to do a lot with the rest of this pen. We're talking about what they need to do and why maybe Jake Burger alone doesn't fix this offense, but he could be giving them a whole bunch more value than he's even given his other teams. We're talking about why that is right after this. This show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best way to get your tickets for any live events you're looking to go to. Whether you want to go catch a Rangers game next year, whether you want to go catch a Mavs game this offseason, or if you want to go check out something else like a concert you're looking to go to, or some theater, or some stand-up comedy you're looking to go to, Game Time is the best way to get tickets for all those events. And they got a new feature called Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They've also got the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% the difference. You can also get panoramic seat views from in the app, so you know exactly what it's going to look like once you get there. No guessing and showing up and saying, "Oh wow, there's this big old pole in front of me. I can't even see the stage." No, you will know exactly what it looks like in the app before you buy. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Now, there's been a lot of speculating about Nathaniel Lowe possibly leaving, possibly going out via trade, and Jake Burger just being the Rangers' first baseman, and I don't think that's going to be the case. I'm also not sure that he's not going to play a decent chunk of first base, because Michael Young was saying that Jake Burger is going to be a mainstay in the Rangers lineup. He also said that the Rangers don't want the DH spot to just be one guy. They want it to be more of a rotational kind of thing to get more guys' days off. I think that it could be used quite a bit by Adolis Garcia. I think that would be a good thing for Adolis. More half days, more days off his feet, because he is such an intense physical player that it does take a wear and tear. And his defense, frankly, fell off a cliff last year. I mean, he won a Gold Glove in 2023, but I'd like to see him at DH a little bit more. And also, if Jake Burger is just taking up that DH spot, then it'd be harder to rotate more guys in. We would see very less of Josh Smith. But the one guy I do think that this trade means they're done in Texas, I think it's time that the Rangers trade Ezekiel Duran. Now, I think I'm going to feel really annoyed with whatever this trade is, because I'm still a very high guy on Ezekiel Duran. I think this is a guy who, if he was given an everyday spot in the right scenario, he could be an everyday either shortstop or third baseman or second baseman. Heck, if you give him everyday reps in the outfield, I think he could go do that too. I think he's a guy who could be a first division starter on a quality competing team. But second base is filled. Shortstop is filled. First base is now very filled. Third base, you have Josh Young, who I don't think Jake Burger is going to be taking that many reps from either. And also, he's not even the Rangers' primary backup super utility kind of infielder. He fell behind Josh Smith after Smith's should have been all-star season, was a silver slugger season. And I like that we get to, call Pookie a silver slugger and have it actually be true, as opposed to just true in spirit, like it is true with his all-star appearance that should have been, but alas wasn't. But the Rangers probably need to move on from Ezekiel Duran. I know this will be selling low on him. If the Rangers traded him after 2022, after that incredible season, even though he did fall off a cliff, actually 2023 season where he fell off a cliff after the second half, but he is a Rangers World Series hero forever, even though he didn't actually play in the World Series, or heck, I don't even think he got an at-bat in the postseason, because I don't think he was on the Rangers roster for most of that postseason until he was the injury replacement for Adolis Garcia. But if he did not step up in the way he did for Corey Seager in the first half, the Rangers don't make the playoffs, they don't win the World Series, all that good stuff. But Zeke Duran having room for a second backup super utility infielder, I don't think there's going to be room for it. But one guy who I think the Rangers could trade him for, he could be the headliner in a package for Brewers closer Devin Williams. Williams is most definitely on the trading block. The Milwaukee Brewers declined a $10.5 million option for him this year. He is just going to make whatever he makes in arbitration, which is probably going to be around $7 to $8 million, which is a pretty good price point for one of the best closers in baseball. Going to be less expensive than whoever the Rangers want to go out and sign to fortify the back end of that pin in free agency, whether that's Kirby Yates, whether that is maybe even looking at a Tanner Scott, which I think that could get scary in terms of price point pretty quickly for a guy who's been one of the best relievers in baseball the last couple of seasons, but again, is a reliever, so those guys are fickle, and paying them for more than 2 years scares the bejesus out of me every time. But still, I think that could be a way that the Rangers go ahead and impact this. But in terms of Jake Burger, adding dingers alone does not fix this offense. It doesn't. But I do think that for the price point, for where the Rangers are going to allocate their money, I think it's one of the smartest things they could have done. Especially looking at the return that they gave up. None of those guys, I think, are going to be major factors on really any Rangers contending team. I like all three of those prospects. Echedry Vargas probably most of all. I really like the steps that Max Acosta made, but if those are the three you're giving up for 4 years of control for a guy who has one very, very valuable tool in his raw power, and not just raw, but game power. I mean, hitting for 29 home runs in what was considered a down year for him. This is a guy who I think the Rangers can make even better. The Rangers hitting coaching staff is one of the best in baseball. I mean, we have seen what this Rangers hitting coaching staff can do. Donnie Ecker as offensive coordinator, now adding Justin Veal, who was his hitting coach or assistant hitting coach back in San Francisco with the 2021 San Francisco Giants, that were one of the best offenses we've maybe ever seen in baseball. And it was a bunch of guys who not a whole lot was expected from, a whole bunch of older guys who were considered very washed, that all had career seasons at the same time. A lot of that was because of that hitting coaching staff. And bringing in Justin Veal along with the assistant hitting coach Seth Connor, I think that Veal and Ecker's joint philosophy being basically the same thing, and having them be on the same page, as opposed to the last regime, where it was two very good offensive minds, but kind of had some different opinions on things, different viewpoints, weren't always necessarily aligned, and that's harder to instruct people and get the most out of them. And look at where Jake Burger has been in his career. These are not exactly ideal destinations for great hitting or great instruction or just really even well-run organizations. I mean, two of the worst-run organizations in baseball, the Chicago White Sox and the Miami Marlins, two of the butts of every joke around baseball. I mean, those teams are not signing basically any top-tier free agents. They are not premier destinations. They are not places where you think you get the most out of your talent. This has always been a guy with a high upside. If the Rangers can coach him into some better swing decisions, he's probably never going to be a guy who works anywhere near Nathaniel Lowe's level of walks, but taking him from, the 14th percentile of walk rate and the bottom 10% of baseball and chase rate, and moving those more to the, say he's in the 30th percentile for walk rate and he's chasing, at the 25th percentile, make him just that incrementally much better. Think of how many better pitchers he's going to get. If he's doing this kind of damage while having this bad of an approach, if you can make the approach that much better, this might be an absolute offensive monster. Maybe not. Maybe this is just who he is. He is 28 years old, and it's hard to change guys when they are this far into their big league tenure. But if the Rangers can do it, and this hitting coaching staff has shown they pretty much can, he's still only 4 years into his big league career. Only 4 years. So there's still time for change, still time for improvement. And even if there is an improvement, the baseline level of Jake Burger is really good, especially with whatever else was out there on the free agent market. I mean, the Rangers took a look around at who they could get on this free agent market in terms of hitters. Well, there's Teoscar Hernandez. Nope. the Rangers aren't spending that kind of money on a corner outfielder when they already have so many decent outfielders. That's just not happening. Pete Alonso, that market is going to be crazy expensive. Is kind of basically just a Jake Burger with a little bit more power, maybe a slightly better approach. So I don't see that happening. Alex Bregman, no, absolutely not. That's not happening. I mean, the other guys around there, Jock Peterson, I think he would be a perfect signing, but he might be end up getting really expensive because it seems like everybody's getting really expensive. Ha-Seong Kim, nope, not a great offensive player, great defensive player, but again, the Rangers have shortstop covered. I mean, you just keep looking around, and while my own personal biases would love Joey Gallo back because I am physically incapable of being unbiased while talking about my large adult son, Joseph Nicholas Gallo. And if you wanted to bring dingers back in, Joey Gallo getting a minor league camp invite and ending up winning a spot and getting back to the best version of himself is a deeply held dream of mine, but probably not an actual reality. You look at what else is out there. All of this roundabout talk to say there's not a whole lot better the Rangers could have done, especially given the price point for not only the trade, but him being pre-arbitration this year, making around the league minimum, and not making all that much money for the next 3 seasons after that he has club control. This is a very, very smart trade, and if the Rangers can unlock a slightly better approach, it can get a slightly better on base from this big slugger, turn him not into just a home run or bust guy. That could be a huge, huge boon to this Rangers offense. But one offense that I think might be taking a big old step back is a team in the division that has won way too many AL West crowns. But is their time atop the AL West done because they might have to trade their best player because they're too poor? We're going to talk about what that means for the Rangers in the race for the AL West over the next couple seasons, right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. They've got all kinds of odds from football to basketball to hockey to baseball as well. They just came out with division odds for the AL West in 2025. Right now, the Houston Astros are the favorites at -150. Mariners at +290, the second favorite. The Rangers all the way down there at +400. The Rangers' odds for the 2025 World Series still haven't changed at all, despite signing Nathan Eovaldi, despite trading for Jake Burger. If the Rangers +400 before the Astros have possibly traded off maybe even Framber Valdez, it's looking more and more likely by the day that Kyle Tucker is going to be gone. +400 to win the AL West when the two teams ahead of them might be on their way down. That could be some very good odds. So go check it out all out at FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunt. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now, I just talked about why the Rangers aren't going to trade away a good player just to save some money, just to be poor. If they were willing to go into, they would have to have gone into the luxury tax to sign both Max Fried and Nathan Eovaldi. Just the fact they were even considering those scenarios shows you that ownership is willing to spend money, and not just willing to spend money on big free agents, but their own players in arbitration. That seems like a likely jump to make. But one team in the AL West, actually there's a couple of teams in the AL West, but one team I want to talk about specifically does not seem as likely to be willing to keep those expensive arbitration players in their walk year. Now, Nathaniel Lowe is not in his walk year, but this guy, Kyle Tucker, is. There were some reports, some rumblings, some rumors. I talked about it at the deadline, and it was kicked about and brushed off at the trade deadline this year when the Astros seemed out of it, that maybe they just might trade Kyle Tucker. Tucker is going to be under club control for one more year. He's projected to make around $16.5 to $17 million in his final arbitration season. He is 28 years old, and he's going to be a free agent after next year. And the Astros don't have a tendency of paying their own players in free agency, even their own homegrown stars. unless they're Jose Altuve, they let them walk pretty much every time. They did it with Carlos Correa. They did it with George Springer. It's probably going to happen again with Kyle Tucker, and it might be happening right now with Alex Bregman. Oh, how glorious would it be if Alex Bregman and Kyle Tucker are both gone from the Houston Astros heading into 2025. No more home run robberies over that right field short porch that Kyle Tucker has done to the Rangers so many times. But this is not just me hoping and praying and speculating. This is from Joel Sherman of the New York Post. He wrote an article about how he tweeted out how agreeing to a deal with Max Fried is giving the Yankees a path to try and land Kyle Tucker, who's seen as more and more likely to be traded by the Astros. Now, the Cubs are also in pursuit of that trade, and from the reports, it seems like the Astros are asking an astronomical return for Kyle Tucker, who has been one of the best players in the game for quite some time. The Astros desperately missed him when he was out this year, but he's only got 1 year of club control. I haven't seen nearly the same number of rumors and rumblings about Framber Valdez, who is projected to make more than Kyle Tucker this year in arbitration. According to Spotrac, the number for Kyle Tucker is at $16.7 million for arbitration, just the estimate. And Framber Valdez projected at $18.8 million, which would make him the third highest player on this roster, behind Jose Altuve, Josh Hader, $19 million a year, still tickles me to this day. And Lance McCullers would be just behind Framber and ahead of Kyle Tucker. Lance McCullers, who is probably going to pitch this year. It feels like it's been forever since we've seen Lance McCullers. He's making $17.7 million this year. But the ask for the return for Kyle Tucker is starting with Luis Gil, the reigning Rookie of the Year for the Yankees. It's going to be a very, very big price. Now with the Cubs, who are also considered very much in on the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes, the fact that they're too poor to trade is just, as a certified Houston Astros hater, it is just absolutely delightful to watch. But the return might be Isaac Paredes, who is a confirmed big leaguer, would probably play third. This would probably mean that Bregman is gone, which ding dong, the Alex Bregman is gone. I have some quips saved if he ends up leaving that are going to be absolutely delightful. But Paredes would work very, very well in Houston as a short porch king, very much a right-handed extreme pull hitter. And in that Mickey Mouse Stadium would hit just about as many cheapy home runs as Alex Bregman has hit in that stadium, which is to say quite a bit. But this is a massive sign that even if Bregman does leave, even if Tucker isn't traded, even if Valdez isn't traded, we're looking at the end of the Astros dynasty. We just might be there. Now, they've got a lot of good young players, but in terms of the pitching staff, I mean, as it pains me to say how much Hunter Brown really broke out this year. I mean, he was a home run merchant in his first year as a big leaguer. He gave up quite a few home runs in the first half, but was dynamite in the second half. They've pulled out plenty of other pitchers out of their booties that have been sensational, and it's incredibly frustrating to watch as someone who does not like that team. Spencer Arrighetti, I think, should be a decent player. I mean, Ronald Blanco had an incredible season, quite literally out of nowhere, but the offense is taking big leaps and bounds backwards. If they can't bring back Bregman, then they have Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, and Jose Altuve as their legitimate great offensive weapons. I think that Yainer Diaz is a solid hitter, but nothing that's terrifying. And just in 2023, that was a terrifying lineup, basically 1 through 8 even. If they ended up playing Yainer Diaz, then it could be a terrifying lineup 1 through 9. And it just seems like player after player after player is just either falling off or just not a threat. And that is a great thing for the Rangers in the long term, in their hopes of not only contending for this year in 2025, which I think the AOS is going to be very open, but for years to come. I mean, the Mariners have never been willing to spend big enough to really compete. They've got incredible young homegrown arms, but their years of club control are coming to an end. Not this year, but only a couple more seasons or 3 more seasons. They're still going to produce even more. very good young homegrown starting pitching, but their offense, I think, is still too bad to actually win the AL West. And then you look around at who else is in the AL West. The A's are an absolute mess. The Angels have always been a mess as well. And then it's the Rangers. The competition for the AL West is about to get less and less steep. From one of the best divisions in baseball in 2023 to 2024, this was one of the worst divisions in baseball. So the Rangers, in terms of their getting better to get back to the playoffs and compete, the bar is getting lower and lower. I mean, the A's, I think, are going to be sneaky more, contend better than people thought. They have a really good lineup, and if they aren't going to trade away all of their stars as soon as they start to make even $3, then they're going to be a dangerous team. But if the Astros, the Wicked Witch of the AL West, is starting to decline, if they lose Bregman, if they trade away Tucker, if they trade away Framber Valdez, this becomes a very, very winnable division. And in terms of things that it helps the Rangers do this offseason, convincing Roki Sasaki, hey, you might be able to compete here for a long time if you sign with the Texas Rangers, because that demon we done slayed in the 2023 ALCS is dying a very, very quick death. And also, the Rangers still have plenty more to do this offseason in terms of their bullpen. I think they got around $25 million left to spend. I'll probably talk about that more on tomorrow's episode of what exactly they should do with that money in terms of the bullpen. But $25 million to spend on a bullpen, heck, that alone could probably get you Robertson and Yates back. You'd have to add, I think the Rangers need to add two more relievers. If $25 million gets them to around $139 million, just right up there against the luxury tax, if they could do that, then that might be as close to a perfect offseason. And then you add in Roki Sasaki as the cherry on top of what, with or without Roki, if the Rangers do all they've done right now and bring back Yates and Robertson, then that is a perfect offseason. And then if the Rangers are good enough to go and are convincing enough to go and get Roki Sasaki in January, this is the makings of a near perfect offseason. There's still lots more to do with the bullpen. I'll probably talk more about that either tomorrow's show or later on next week. But that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.